Cool. So let's start with text now. Of course, we need to create a new composition. You can come to the small button over here if you're not in 2018, or click a new comp. We are going to take a standard composition that we'll work through in the course. Of course, feel free to change to high resolution if you like to, but I will work on 720x25, which is pretty good for the course. Fine, so let's change the composition name and write text trials. And then I will leave it 25 frames. It doesn't really matter because we're not gonna animate here, and the time is 5 seconds. Now the background color here, I will change it to something that is nice for you. Okay, you can see it nicely. Click OK, and then I click OK to create the composition. Cool, guys. When you're working with text, the character panel and the paragraph panel are very important, and sometimes also the align panel. Now for the purpose of this lecture, I will click on the character panel and take it outside so it's visible all the time. We learned that in the previous section. I will do the same for the paragraph panel. Let's take it out, just over here, bottom. Okay. Then I will come over to the character panel and stretch it down so we see everything. Okay, here you are. Notice what's happening in the character panel. Before you start putting any text, notice the font is Arial, it's narrow, the text size is so big, there is so many settings here. Well, this is not convenient to start writing new text, mainly in a new project. What I recommend is you always reset your character panel. Okay, please do that because there are some settings here that are very confusing. So when you reset your character panel, it falls to Times New Roman and regular, and the font size is very small. You can immediately start changing this. If you click on the arrow next to the font name, you will have a list of all the fonts you have in your system. You can also add some from the type kit. Later on we'll see that. So I'm gonna choose here Arial. Notice that I have a star on Arial, meaning this is my favorite font, and there is the Arial and a sample of it. If you twirl down this arrow just here between the star and the Arial, you get all the font styles for this font. Let's choose, for example, I don't know, regular. Here you are. Now the font size is very small. The best way to change it is just to click inside so you can edit the number and type, for example, 100 in our case. Cool. In the paragraph panel here, we can reset it if you like. Okay, but I will leave it to center text. It's easier to work with center text. When I will start adding text, it's gonna use these settings and these paragraph settings. To add text, you come to your text tool over here. If you long click, you will have horizontal type tool and vertical type tool. For now, let's stick to horizontal type tool. So you can come over to your composition viewer here and click and start typing. This is one way to do it. Notice the mouse pointer. It is in text add now. But the nicest way to add text is just to double click on the horizontal type tool. Here you are. So it starts allowing you to add text just in the middle of the composition, 100% centered. And then you start typing the text. Let's type motion graphics. Okay, so I typed motion graphics here and notice my mouse pointer. This mouse pointer means that you are in the edit mode for the text layer. If you take it outside, you will notice now it's in the move edit mode. It means I will be able to move the layer but still in the edit mode. If you click out, you can start moving the layer. Okay, and then if you release, you're still in the edit mode. Now obviously I made a mistake here, like grab, I don't know. So let's correct this mistake. What you do is just use the arrow keys if you want, left and right, or simply what I like doing is clicking and selecting some characters over here. Okay, and typing again the right word, that will be graphics. Cool. I will click outside and position it. Now you can of course continue editing by positioning the edit pointer anywhere you want. Here you are, and typing more if you like, or deleting them with the backspace. So now when you finish editing and you're happy from what you wrote, you want to exit the edit mode of this layer. You have a couple of options. If you press Ctrl Enter, which I will do, you will exit the edit mode of this text layer, but stay in the text tool. So you can click anywhere now, here you are, and start adding more text. Now, if you're happy from your text, let me do a correction here. If this is all the text that you want to add, you don't want the text tool anymore, to exit the editing mode, you just go for your selection tool. You can't press V because of course it will write V. So you go for your selection tool. Now you have exited the edit mode and also exited the text tool. So you can click now and adjust your layers wherever you want them. Let's say now after exiting, you want to edit your text. My favorite way is to come to the layer. You notice I have the bounding box appearing and I double click. It will highlight and select all the text within the layer. Cool. Then I can highlight whatever I want, okay, or even put it in the middle and type more text, highlight another text for example, and delete it. To exit now, I have the choice. I can press Ctrl Enter or I will go for the selection tool. So to edit a text layer, just double click on it and then you can click anywhere and start editing or using the cursors left and right, and if you like whom and you can edit your text. So it's pretty easy, pretty simple. So now you have learned how to add the text and how to edit the text and how to move the text layer. So notice what happened in the timeline. A text layer has been created. You notice the T for text layer, and it's actually showing you what you have written, and this is the motion graphic text. If you scroll down a bit, you will notice that you have text. This is the content itself, and you have the transform. This is transformation for animating the text layer itself. Within the text, you will have several options here that we will see later on in the course. Hi guys, shapes are very important part of After Effects, and it's very important that you master them. In this lecture, you're gonna have an overview of how to create shapes in a correct way, if you like. So let's start exploring shapes. We need to create a new composition. We're gonna take a plain composition so I can demonstrate for you. I will click and I will create here a composition called Shapes Trial. I will use 720 by 25. Feel free to use any one that you like. It's okay, it's no problem, just demonstration. And of course I will leave it for 5 seconds, but we are not going to animate anything yet. The background color, I will use black. Feel free to use another one because it will show very well on your screen when you're going through this video. Click OK. To create shapes, of course you're gonna come to the shape tool. I think you already seen it in this course a couple of times. If you click on it, you will select the shape tool that is already visible. If you long click, you will be able to select any shape tool that you like. There is the ellipse tool, the star tool, and the others. Let's start with the rectangle tool, a simple one. The first thing, the most important thing, is to make sure that Bezier path here is unchecked. Okay, we want to create simple shapes or what we call parametric shapes. So Bezier path is a different kind of shapes that we'll learn about later on. For now, make sure it is unchecked. Now you notice here the bar has changed a bit. There is fill and there is stroke. And there are two options grayed out. You will see about them just in a second. To create a shape, it's pretty easy. You have a shape tool rectangle, you click and drag to create a shape. Now, these colors that I have here, the white and somehow the green, are the colors I used in my previous shape. You can come over here now and start changing the fill and its color. If you click on the fill word, that is fill options, you will be able to change certain options. One of them is no fill at all. Here you are, there is no more fill. Or a solid fill like you can see, or a linear fill. From time to time you will be able to use it. Fantastic colors, right guys? Or you have here the radial gradient. Okay, you will learn how to adjust this later. Let's go back to the plain color. You also have the blending mode. We will go through these in details later on. They are very interesting, by the way. For now, please leave it to normal. And you have the opacity. The opacity is how transparent it is. Now it's totally transparent at 0% opacity or full transparent at 100%. Cool guys, so actually this is all about the fill options. If you remove the preview here, you won't be able to see anything previewed unless you click OK. So always try to use the preview. If you click OK, you will set these options. You can come to the fill color, click on it, and change the colors the way you would like. Okay, of course we are in solid colors now. And if you like this color, for example, you click OK. I click cancel just for simplicity. Now you have the stroke here. Notice there is a simple stroke over here that came from the last one I created. You can come to the stroke options. That's the word stroke. You click on it and you have the same options for no stroke, solid color, linear, and radial. I will set it back to solid. You have the blending modes, and of course you have the opacity. So actually it's pretty easy, for the stroke is identical to the fill. Click OK, and that's it. Now we come to the stroke size. This is important. I'm gonna make the size very big, or you can take it to 0 depending on what you want to do. Let's make it very big. Notice what's happening over here. This is an important concept now. You have the stroke. It is now, in our case, for example, 160. Okay, but also you have the binding box over here. This is the binding box of the layer. Now the stroke is not completely inside the layer. Half of it is outside and half of it is inside. So you need to keep that in mind, because it will affect in your animation. And there is a way to put it all in or all out. So actually you want to set it to something good, for example 10. And here you are, you created a shape. Click on the layer, select the layer. You can of course, cycle it around, put it wherever you like. So actually this is how you create a shape. It's simple, it's easy. We will have a certain overview, if you like, how to select shapes and what's inside the shape layer, and how to create a perfect circle and a square. That's all. It's very easy. Now, we created a shape layer before. If you select the shape layer, you will notice the binding box of the shape layer. I will put the stroke to 0 so you can see it clearly. So you notice these small squares around. This is the binding box of the shape layer. So if you click here, you are selecting the shape layer. Let's delete the shape layer and go further. Let's go for the rectangle tool and draw a shape. So now we see the binding box of the shape layer. If I go directly for the selection tool, notice the binding box has changed. This binding box with these small squares with a white dot inside are the binding box of the shape inside the shape layer. So actually you have a shape layer and you have a shape, and you have the possibility to select the whole shape layer or the shape itself. If I select the shape layer, for example, and come to draw another shape, that's the first thing I will do. For example, an ellipse. You notice that tool creates shape is highlighted, meaning while the shape layer is selected and the star here is highlighted, if you create a shape, it will be a real shape in the same layer. But if you move to the next one, tool creates mask, then you will not be creating a shape and you will be masking the shape layer. This is not the subject for now. Just make sure that you have tool creates shape always selected for now. While the shape layer is selected, you can click and drag and to create a different shape. Here you are. Now inside the shape layer you have ellipse 1 and rectangle 1. If I select the shape layer and give it a stroke, for example 10, now I changed the stroke for all the shapes inside the shape layer. Same for the color if you like. You notice? For all of them. But I will undo the stroke. If with the selection tool I select ellipse 1, here is it selected, and change the stroke, you will notice that I'm changing the stroke only for ellipse 1. If I select rectangle 1, I can change the stroke for rectangle 1. Here you are. Okay? So you have the possibility to select a shape inside the shape layer. Are we agreeing on that, guys? So it's very important to learn to decide what are you animating. Let me put it up. Now, if you select the shape layer, you have the transform here and you can animate any one of them. You can see the stopwatch. We have seen that already. But if you select an ellipse 1 or the rectangle 1, if you scroll down, you notice you have rectangle 1, stroke, fill. These are the usual stroke, fill here. And you have transformations or animations for rectangle 1. If you scroll down path 1, you can adjust the shape. Notice how the shape is selected here. So you can adjust the size if you like, and you adjust the position inside the shape layer. Of course, you can add some roundness if you like to. We'll see that also. And you can come to the transform rectangle and even create animations using the transform rectangle, which is a subject we will tackle later on when we're doing compound and complex shapes. So pay attention to what you are selecting. In the ellipse one, you will notice inside the ellipse one, you have size and position. Of course, you don't have roundness, and you can adjust the size of the ellipse. So, like this, you have selected the shape layer, and like this, you have selected the shape. You notice the binding box inside the shape layer. Let's delete this one. I'll show you how to create a perfect circle. If you click and drag, press shift, you have a perfect circle. You notice, guys, let's put the stroke to 2, it will be nicer. So this is the way to create a perfect circle. Fine, I will undo this one, and let's go back to rectangle. If you click and drag, you create a rectangle. If you press shift, then you will create a square, as simple as that. You can come and play with the polygon tool. If you click and drag, you create a polygon. If you come inside the shape layer, you notice there is polystar. And then in the polystar here, if you scroll down, you will notice all the properties for a polystar. You can have it as polygon or star, simple. You can add points, for example, here you are. You can animate this also. And if you want a rectangle, you make it 3 points. You can adjust the position, you can adjust the rotation the way you would like. Let's put it at 0, so you have a straight rectangle. And there is the inner radius, and you have the outer radius, here you are. And you have the inner roundness. If you like to play with it, it does something very nice. And the outer roundness. Okay, so this has been an overview of how to create shape layers and how to create shapes inside shape layers. Just be attentive and things will be okay.